Hello, everybody. It's been quite a while. I've been busy going through a rough patch, but eventually I think I may have found my way out of it just long enough to make this video. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays if you don't celebrate, and I'm making this video because of something very important to me. See, when it comes to being a Christian apologist, you have to hear from atheists a lot. And one thing you'll notice is you think you watch more atheist videos that are made by atheists than you do actually Christian videos made by Christians, because the Christians aren't the ones you have to watch. You have to watch the atheists. Having said this, I was at a point of what I would call getting spiritually frustrated. It's if you listen to a crazy person long enough, the crazy person might start to sound sane to you. Atheists, flat earthers, I watch the videos, and you got to remember to pull your head out of that stuff, or it will actually start to make sense to you. So, when I was in a condition like that, I came across a YouTube video that I think was brought to my attention by Eric Hernandez, Trinity Radio, and there was a video. The video is entitled Two Heavily Evidential Miracle Accounts, and it was where people were claiming to be miraculously healed by God. Watch the video. It is a very great video. I would recommend you watch it. I'm going to put a link to it in the description if you want to see the whole thing. I'm about to show you a preview of it, but I wanted to say this. I have a family member of mine. I'm not even sure what she would technically be to me. I think my cousin. But her name is Anastasia. She's young, like toddler young, and I have heard that she's not doing very good. I don't know much. I know she has a tumor. I know they had to take her to New York City to get treatment. I reached out over Facebook to talk to my grandmother, Nana I call her, to try and get more details. Maybe she just didn't want to think about it because it was Christmas. Maybe she didn't want to. Maybe she was just busy. But I have not heard back from her, so I cannot provide you with the details. All I can tell you is, at last check, it's not looking that good. So, before I say any further, here is that clip from Trinity Radio. It's about 7 minutes long. Before I go on, watch it, and then I'll get back to you.
Introduced him to a woman named Barbara Schneider. Let me tell you about Barbara Schneider. She is the most fascinating case I discovered during my 2-year investigation. It just blew my mind. Her case is the most thoroughly documented of any that I encountered. I interviewed Barbara at length. There are years and years of massive scientific and medical evidence of her case, including from the Mayo Clinic. We have multiple credible eyewitnesses with no motive to deceive or to lie. We have 2 physicians who were so astounded by what happened to her, they wrote books about it. In fact, one of her physicians was an atheist, and he looked at her and he said, "Barbara, this is a miracle." And then he walked out of the room. I don't think he knew what to do with it. But let me tell you Barbara's story, and then I want you to hear her words from her. Barbara was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis at the Mayo Clinic. After years of deterioration and repeated hospitalizations and surgeries, she was in hospice in bed at her home. In other words, she was dying. One of her physicians, Dr. Harold P. Adolph, who was a board-certified surgeon who performed 25,000 operations in his career, he called Barbara, quote, "one of the most hopelessly ill patients I ever saw." Hopelessly ill, he said. One of her lungs was non-functional. The other lung was just 50% inflated. A tracheostomy tube was inserted into her neck, and oxygen was being pumped from her garage so she could breathe. She had lost control of her urination and her bowels. She had a tube in her stomach so she could be fed. She was legally blind. She'd lost her eyesight. All she could see was shadows, gray shadows. She had not walked in 7 years, and so her legs had atrophied till they were just sticks. Her hands were permanently curled. Her fingers were virtually touching her wrists, and her toes, her feet were permanently extended. And her parents and the doctors agreed there was nothing more they could do medically. She was in hospice. She was going to die. They said the next time she contracts pneumonia, let's not try to save her because it's just going to postpone her inevitable death. Then one day, a friend of hers called up WMBI, which is the Christian radio station in Chicago. She lived in suburban Chicago. And told her and said, my friend Barbara's dying. And could you just let people know on the radio that to pray for her? And so we know that at least 450 people began praying for Barbara because they wrote letters affirming that they were praying for her.
Okay, now I know this is a long clip that I'm playing here, but I want you to hear it. I want you to notice a couple of things that are similar in the last case and this case. In the last case, what we had was, well, in both cases, you have a religiously informed theater. You may recall me bringing this up if you saw my video responding to Paulogia about the resurrection. And that is that with the resurrection, you know, you have this religiously informed theater where Jesus was claiming to be God's special eschatological agent. And so there were all these religious trappings around the event. Similarly to the resurrection, here what we have in the case of Dwayne Miller, he was actually leading a Sunday school class. This is, number one, it's very rare that he would be in a position where a microphone, a special microphone, was shoved up into his face. This is, I mean, how, you know, for years he's had this problem, and at this very moment where it could be recorded, it was recorded. Secondly, he's talking about miraculous healings, and it's at that moment that this happens. It's a religiously informed theater, is the way we put it. Likewise here, we have over 400 people that we know are praying because they wrote into the radio station or whatever, that we know are praying. So this at this very moment where this is about to occur, people are then praying that she will be miraculously healed. A large number of people like that. So let's hear what Strobel says next.
So what happened? I went to Barbara and I asked her to tell you what happened. So let's watch her describe what occurred next.
June 7th, 1981. I'll never forget it. It was a day like any other day for me. That was one spent confined to bed, unable to breathe on my own, hooked up to machines, a tracheostomy tube in my neck, my arms curled up, my legs curled up. I lay there trapped inside my own body is really how it felt. I had 2 friends over. They came over all the time. They were from my church. My church family never forgot me. So while they were there, I still remember exactly what they were reading when all of a sudden I heard a booming, authoritative, loud voice over my shoulder over here say, "My child, get up and walk."
And there was nobody else in the room?
And there was no one else in the room, and the door was over here. There were windows over this way. And instantly I knew it was God. But instantly I also knew that my friends didn't hear that, which is kind of interesting too.
Yeah.
And I needed to share with them what I heard. Well, I had this tracheostomy tube in my neck, that's how I breathed, and I had hands that did not work. So my friends said whenever I looked agitated, they knew I wanted to talk. So they'd come and plug the hole in my neck. And I said, I don't know what you're going to think about this, but God just told me to get up and walk. And my friends got really quiet. I know, but he really did tell me to get up and walk. Run, get my family. I want them to be here. And my friends all of a sudden jumped up, and while they jumped, so did I. I was so excited I couldn't wait for anyone. And I literally jumped out of the bed. This is where you'd almost have to known me to see how totally impossible that was. So this time, I remember reaching up and pulling my oxygen off my neck. I remember that. And then I jumped toward the voice. My friends are over here, but I jumped towards the voice. And as I jumped up, the first thing I remember isn't what I would think I would remember, but I jumped out of the bed and I looked and I saw my feet. They were flat on the ground, just like everyone else's, which sounds normal, but not for me. I had foot drops so badly I couldn't even wear slippers on my feet. They were so curled. So when I jumped up to have feet flat, I was amazed and stood staring at my feet. And when I did that, I jumped like this, and then I saw my hands. And they were open, and they never opened. And so now they were open, and I stood staring at them, and then it dawned on me I could see me. That's what I would have thought I would have noticed first, was my vision. But I didn't.
It was back, you could see.
It was back. I was perfectly fine. And I stood staring again for a little while, just feeling what it felt like to look at and see me. And then I turned, and that's when we were like women. We all started jumping up and down, screaming and thanking the Lord. I remember I didn't understand anything, except where once I was real sick, I was well again. And it has to be God. That's all I knew.
Yeah.
Barbara's in bed. She hears a voice, "My child, get up and walk." She jumps out of bed. She's instantly and totally healed. Her mother comes running into the room, drops to her knees, and begins to feel her legs. Say, "You have calves again." Her legs had atrophied because she hadn't walked in 7 years, and her muscles returned instantaneously. Her father came in the room and hugged her and began waltzing with her around the room. And that night, her church, which is Wheaton Wesleyan Church in Wheaton, Illinois, was holding...
Notice this. This is that night. So the same day of the healing, that night she goes to church. That, I think you could miss that. It's amazing.
...holding a service. And the pastor gets up and he says, "Does anybody have any announcements?" And Barbara starts walking down the aisle. And all the church ever knew of Barbara was Barbara in a wheelchair, and blind, and she's walking down the aisle, and people just spontaneously began to shout and applaud and cheer, and they broke into songs, said, "Amazing grace, I once was blind, and now I see." And the next morning, she went to one of her doctors, Dr. Thomas Marshall, an internist for 30 years. And when he saw her, his first thought was, "Oh, she must have died, and this is a ghost." His response was, quote, "This is medically impossible."
All right, some pretty good stuff. When I first watched that video, I thought of my girlfriend. My girlfriend had a stroke and she struggles with some things. And I thought about her at first, but then I thought about this family member of mine, very young child, Anastasia. And I decided that, like an angry, middle-aged soccer mom, I was going to skip right over Santa and go to upper management. Having said that, I am writing this video letter to God. Hello, God. It's me. Yes, again. Thank you for everything. I've done nothing but been moving up recently, and I know that I've been doing so much better it could be considered a miracle in its own right. But I also know that there are some people out there who are not doing so well. There are people like my family member, Anastasia, who I don't think I would be wrong to say is in critical condition. There are people out there who believe in miraculous healings, some who claim to have experienced them, others who claim to have been the one miraculously healed. The man running Trinity Radio certainly does, and as a Christian, I too do believe in miraculous healings. Having said that, for Christmas, despite the fact I know it is Christmas Eve, so I broke the Christmas law of waiting way too long to ask for this, and I also broke the Christian law of praying being the first thing that you do, because I put it off for this long. And I think one of the reasons I thought to do this is because it's all I can do from where I am. Having said that, all I would like for Christmas this year is for my family member, Anastasia, to get better. Be it a miraculous way or a natural way. Because although I understand that this is going to be probably a very hard Christmas for the people around her, that doesn't mean it should have to be the last. And if the miraculous accounts given by the man hosting Trinity Radio are in fact legit, and you are a God that works miraculous healings, I don't suppose it would be too much to ask for just one more. Sincerely yours, Trey Rodriguez. Like, subscribe, do all that good YouTube stuff. Whatever you do, stick around, and I'll see you when I see you.